part of this project a win-win. When I first read that, I assumed that was because a pool was a desirable part of a senior center, and so the budget would cover the cost of the pool too. I'm just learning now that in the past week, so the NewCAL Center is one thing, that's the 16 million. The pool is completely separate. Is the messaging to the community that the pool will not be redone and fixed if the community doesn't rally around the NewCAL Center being placed in Albemarle Field?
Really good question. So the pool is in the CIP, but I want to say it's not actually shown as funded. And if you carry it out, essentially, oh, sorry, I apologize. Capital improvement plan. Okay. So the city council votes once a year. The mayor and executive office and building, a lot of different departments submit a capital improvement plan. We submit to the city council and they vote on that. And essentially, what it is, ours is a 5-year plan. So it shows what all the projects are that we feel are a priority and should be somewhere in the 5-year plan. They're all sorted by risk of failure and impact of failure. The NewCAL project is fairly high on that list for all the reasons that Jane has mentioned. The GAF pool is relatively low on that list, even though that's a high priority based on the issues that Bob raised. In a 5-year plan, when you're comparing it against all the other issues out there, whether it be fire trucks or water sewer infrastructure or schools, it ranks lower. What we're really saying is that it would be an opportunity that if we can find a way to create synergy and minimize our impact to this location, that the community and the Parks and Rec Commission can get behind, then it's an opportunity to accelerate addressing that the GAF pool much faster than it otherwise would have been. So eventually it will get addressed. It's not in the short term, but it would get addressed in the future.
And it is in fact desirable to see the seniors would enjoy the pool. Statistics show seniors want to use the pool, therapeutic, whatever it may be for. I think one of the things that I wanted to clear up early on is there was a misconception out there that the pool was going to be a seniors only pool. In other words, you're losing a community pool as you become a seniors pool. That's not the case. But there will be times for seniors to be in that pool. Right now, my seniors in the winter have to go to Boston College to swim because I can't get time at Newton North, and they have to drive there on their own. So that's something that we try to alleviate by having this pool be in place during the winter.
Yeah, so I asked this before, not sure I understand. Crescent Street, not enough space?
Crescent Street is total land area is a little small, but it's an oddly shaped lot as well. It's kind of 2 parcels that sit like this. There's the actual playground parcel, and then where Parks and Rec currently is. It was, I apologize.
Still is.
Still is. You're kind of there.
Maybe go in the future.
Similar to the New England Mobile Book Fair site, those sites that have odd shapes make it more difficult to fully utilize the square footage.
Sure. And Newton Center?
So Newton Center.
It's been asked, and I don't think I heard the answer.
The triangle?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the Newton Center Triangle is an interesting site. There's a couple different things. This is also posted on the website, getting into it. But there could be a long conversation about Newton Center Triangle, and it goes back, I've been here 13 years, goes a lot long further back than me. But I'll do my best to sum it up. Newton Center Triangle is comprised of kind of 3, it's all one parcel, but 3 different distinct areas. One is the Newton Center Green, which has some very significant deed restrictions. We did some studies that actually date back to the 80s, 1980s, when they were looking at the potential redevelopment of that site. And they were actually looking at whether or not underground parking could go beneath the Newton Center Green. And there's some questions on the legality of that, but it did close the door to whether we could actually go above based on those very specific deed restrictions. That being said, if you back that out, you have approximately 55 to 60,000 square feet of a triangular lot. Important distinction because again, from a geometry standpoint, it becomes a little less efficient. Not impossible, but here's what ultimately, as a relatively layperson when it comes to mixed-use development, my take on that site. When you look at the NewCAL program, with the need for or the programmatic demand for a gym, that's what makes it fairly difficult to deliver a gym facility in that footprint. Because the gym, because of the height of the gym and the general box, makes it difficult, not impossible, but difficult to put on that ground floor and make everything else marry up with it. You could theoretically do an elevated gym up top, but you then, because of the number, the occupancy loading, you need exterior stairwells to come out the sides. If anybody remembers the old Newton North High School, you remember those old metal stairs that come down the side? Elevated gyms create some eyesores out there. But notwithstanding, so let's just assume that we eliminated the gym in its entirety, and you were just looking for kind of the more general office-y type space, multi-purpose room, classroom type things. What you'd be looking at, in my estimation, would be understanding that we can't really support a net loss of parking in that area. You're probably looking at two floors of below-grade parking. You're probably looking at ground floor retail. Most likely then 2 stories of NewCAL, followed by 2 to 3 stories of residential / commercial. Theoretically, that's how you would make a project like that work. The problem with that, it's not that it's insurmountable, but the Newton Center Triangle, I ran this by our planning department to ask about, like, big picture, what does that sound like, to get their kind of visceral reaction. There's a couple challenges. One is, obviously, it doesn't conform to current zoning, so we would need a special permit. We would need to partner with a private developer through some sort of public-private partnership, which is not impossible. There are ways to do that. But ultimately, we would tie ourselves to a project that, very much like the community in and around Albemarle, there is a mobilized base in and around Newton Center that would also come out. And there's a lot of issues that we would be bringing there. More parking, more traffic, not from the NewCAL necessarily, even though there is some level of that from that, but for the development that you'd have to create to support that. The other thing that the planning department identified was that you're talking about a parcel that screams development, and that the highest and best use, if you're looking to, purely from a planning perspective, would be to redevelop that in a mixed use capacity, utilize the mitigation funds that would be generated from a project like that to help offset this project in another location. You get more, for lack of a better phrase, bang for your buck. It's not to say it's impossible, but I'm just putting out there kind of the challenges associated with it. And the last kind of important thing for us is that aside from the Newton Center Green, which is a relatively small green space, we would be kind of isolated from directly adjacent green space. With the understanding, I do know that Newton Center Playground is a little walk right down the way. So it's not, it's not directly adjacent, but I'm also not saying that it's not, relatively close. Just putting it all on the table. So that's a good example. The Newton Center Triangle is a good example of a mid-tier site. It requires some programmatic compromises, some may consider sacrifices, but it, if nothing else worked, could we make those compromises and sacrifices and deliver this project? Possibly. That's it.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken?
I live in the neighborhood, in the Albemarle neighborhood, and I've talked to some of you before about this. The parks bring me a lot of joy, and so it's so hard to see and hear that we're talking about building on them. I agree with so much that's been said, that we just don't have, we're working hard, we've got our kids in school, we don't have the time to fight back like we could, and so we get to lose our park. I started a petition, not the big one, which we all signed and appreciate very much, but was encouraged to sign one specifically to Albemarle when it started. I do want to let everyone know there's just about 600 names on there now, and the comments are very powerful, and I sent it to Arthur and Bob. I don't know if it's gotten to everybody yet, but 98% of them are Newton residents who live right around the area. Many people are pleading, begging to keep the park, and asking to watch, talking about the traffic, access to outdoor recreation spaces, including the basketball courts and the pool. I've spent so much time and energy on that, and I didn't even know that we needed a new gas pool. Like, if we had been informed, I would spend all my time advocating for a new gas pool, which would be wonderful. I see seniors in there every day. I'm a daily user of it with my family, and it's such an important asset to our community. We really need that. So it's hard to hear this bargaining chip that if we lose our park, we'll get a new pool. I don't understand it. I'm hearing from hundreds of people who don't understand it, and I think it's important to consider that. Thanks.
Okay, who else has yet to ask a question or wants to comment? Go ahead.
Sorry for being late. I'm Beth Keegan. I live in Newton Highlands and serve on the council on aging. And speak as I'm a professor of gerontology, and my research group studies healthy aging. So I have some background in the issue. I'd like to voice my very strong support of continuing with the process to explore it. As probably most of you know, the population's aging, and while the current facility is not adequate to serve the needs and opportunities of our older population. So we're very passionate trying to get a new senior center, and we trust the work group's determination that this is the best site. Some of the comments, it's almost as if people think they threw a dart at a map and picked this site without due diligence. So I think if we can proceed with the process, we'll get more information and be able to make a more informed decision down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I just want to, any last comments from those in the public here? Otherwise, we're going to bring it to questions and comments from the commission. So you're welcome to stay. This is a public meeting. And then we have other things on our agenda. So we're obviously giving this first, but yeah, we'll be here for the. So one last comment in the back, and then I'm going to bring it just to the commission.
Oh, I wondered if I could ask, you mentioned that early on in the process, you said that any site that had deforestation was completely eliminated. I realize we don't want to lose trees, but if we're going to lose parks instead, we're taking down trees to put up solar carports in different places in the city, or even developers are coming in and taking down trees to build their buildings. Where are these sites where you were going to take down some trees to put these? If you're going to take a park, maybe you should put those sites back on the table. I don't know, I've looked around on the website a little bit. I don't know if it called out where you just caught anything that took a tree. And again, I'm not in favor of taking trees, but I'm less in favor of losing parks. We have, 118 acres of trees in,
Avery Woods.
but there's like big parklands in the south side of Newton that have tons of trees and acres of trees. I've walked through some of them, they're nice. If you cut 2 acres out of 118, is it gonna make that big a difference? If you're gonna lose a park instead, maybe people might support that a little. And again, we're cutting down trees for solar. You said you were gonna put solar on the roof. Maybe you could make a win out of it that way. I don't know. I don't know where the cutoff happened. It'd be interesting to learn more about those sites that were eliminated on that.
Sure. Yeah. So there were 2 primary ones, Nahanton Park and Webster Woods.
Well, that's a non-starter. I think we're talking about a lot of other tree areas.
I know you said only one more comment, but I think we've all established here today that the seniors will need accessibility. My mother-in-law doesn't drive. There's not enough parking. You said that you need 75 additional spaces. You have not been able to prove that there is. We all just, and then also there's no public transportation to the site. So can you just make sure that that's listed on your list of negatives as you're comparing the negatives to the other sites? Please consider those too.
Certainly.
I'm sure, I don't know if I can ask the professor, don't seniors need publicly accessible sites? There's no bus there at all.
Right.
I'm not thrilled about This is directed to the,
All right, well, I think we all agree we need a
that
publicly
can get ugly.
accessible.
So let's just keep it to the commission, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just thought it was interesting, you said one of the negatives of the triangle was community opposition. And it's not surprising to me that that's important to you, but West Newton continues to be relatively unimportant.
So to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that is a criteria. I'm just saying that there's a vocal group there that has identified issues in that neighborhood as well. So
No, I know, but when you talk about Albemarle, you didn't say one of the problems with Albemarle is community opposition. But when it came to Newton Center, you said community opposition. I just find that interesting.
Because we value the south side over the north side clearly, so.
When you find the pool's leaking. That's right.
All right. So we're going to bring, that was totally sarcastic.
It wasn't funny.
It's not funny. It's not funny.
Yeah.
This is hard.
Horace Mann moved to the new CAR building, which is smaller classrooms. They weren't even ready. Our kids had to have a half day the first week
not
of school.
funny.
Meanwhile, at Cabot and Ainger and Service,
Shame on me,
brand new
shame on
schools.
me, that's my fault, I tried to be cute and it was dumb. All right, so we're gonna bring the discussion back to the commission. Again, you're welcome to stay, we're gonna ask our own questions.
Isn't it part of our process on any topic that is potentially going to go here, that we take a consensus vote whether it should go, the process should continue?
This is not a presentation tonight, this is a Q&A, this is not a presentation night. If it was, then yeah, we'd have to vote to send to public hearing.
Well, I think though it's important, Josh did ask for some feedback.
Yeah, I think.
And it might forestall, them going through a bunch of
I think
motions.
the city stakeholders need to have see some direction, whether they should consider other sites, whether we are going to foreclose the possibility.
They have considered other sites.
Sorry?
No, they're not. He just
All right,
said
sorry, we're closing down, we're gonna have a meeting tonight. This will be a normal meeting, you're welcome to stay and hear the comments. It's a public, it's not, the public hearing portion is over, we're gonna bring it back to the commission now, okay?
And could we have the discussion first and come back to that and see what develops in the discussion as to whether or not we want to make a recommendation? Because we can always make a recommendation. And that's,
No, I just wondered whether we thought at this early point that we could achieve consensus or majority opinion that any parkland is off the table.
I think that'd be good feedback to get, right?
well, I'm not objecting to that at all, as you know. I just want to have a bit of discussion. There are other things I want to find out before I would want to do that. I certainly think it's reasonable suggestion.
Next month's meeting?
No, this one. I want to ask a few questions first. There's some things I really want to know that have to do with that.
One
of them is that, since we're talking about taking open space, have you thought about taking open space? And so part of that open space would remain open space, and part of it would be for the senior center. Have you looked at the open space plan recently?
No, I have not looked at the open.
There are two parcels on the open space plan, only two on the open space plan that are designated for acquiring. And one is in the north end, one is in the south end. And the one in the north end is over 4 acres, the one in the south end I think is about the same. Now, I'm sure they would have their own problems too, but I think you should look at them and consider, because that way parks would come out ahead. And just look at your own.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
They're not existing parks. I'm sorry? These are not existing.
These are not existing parks, they are on the open space plan.
They're privately
So-
owned now?
And they are privately owned now, and CPC money could be used if the city wants, I just think you ought to look at that option before you do anything else. It's not, I know you have a section on paying for it. Looks like Michael Where in the city are you going to get money? Is it all out of CIP, or are you going to get you want CPA funds?
So right now, the 16.65 million that's carried in the capital improvement plan is identified as bonding. And that is, because it's currently funded in the capital improvement plan, that would be bonded and paid for out of our operating budget. Meaning that we would float a bond and we pay for it out of our operating budget.
Okay, so there's no CPA money that's going to be requested?
Not at this time.
Well, it can't, I don't think it fits in within the three categories. If I did the back of the envelope calculation in square footage, it looks like 40% of the proposed building is non-recreation and park usage.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
You're right.
that wouldn't meet the criteria for.
Well, the other part of what I understand what you're saying. The other thing is there are the biggest pieces of open space in the city are golf courses. Have you considered taking a corner of them?
19 holes.
That has been asked. That is something that we have analyzed. It is. Yeah. So there, good example there, and I don't have all the golf courses memorized, I apologize, not an avid golfer, it's been a while, but, the one over by Newton Wellesley, we were asked about taking the 18th green away from them.
Woodland or Brightburn?
Woodland, okay. So, yes, they are things that we have looked at, as far as, those are examples of things that we would continue to evaluate. They kind of need to align, especially if we're not looking at a hostile taking. It would need to be something that is friendly. Yes, we'll continue to do that.
It just seemed to me there were things that you might not have considered in terms of open space considerations.
Gotcha.
Other commissions? Any questions for Josh or in general? No. Really? Do you want to make a motion?
I got a question. What was the consensus when we voted to let Cannon Park get destroyed about a few years ago? We were worried about Albemarle, we didn't worry about Cabot Park. I was worried about it.
I think we did.
And maybe we learned from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Total mistake.
Anything to give a motion?
In order to give direction to what's being sought by the applicable city agencies, we could have a vote on whether to permit I guess we phrase it affirmatively and negatively, but permit the further consideration of Albemarle or prohibit the further consideration of any land in the jurisdiction of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Second on that?
I'll second. Well, am I voting tonight?
Okay, so now we have it open, we have a motion on the table, so any discussion?
Is this premature?
Yeah, can I just chime in for 1 second?
Sure, yep.
I would be careful, only because I heard Mr. Nogi and Mr. Levy talk about process and procedure back there. Normally, this would have been a meeting where you just had a discussion within this would have been purely informational.
Yep.
There would have been no public comment. I think you acquiesced, for lack of a better term, to allow public comment tonight, which I totally agree with. But I think what became of that, obviously you have a room that is, the majority of the room is opposed to this, the site. They're not opposed to the senior center, they're opposed to the site. I think there are some people out there that may be in favor of this who are not in this room tonight because they weren't aware this was gonna be a public hearing. So I would be real careful on any motions that go forward and what the nature of those motions are. Just because I think you're gonna take yourself from where we're talking policy here. I heard two gentlemen in the back talk about procedure, and you've gone outside of it tonight, and you're gonna possibly take a vote to look, I firmly believe this needs a lot more discussion. I heard a lot of very good comments out there this evening, and I know Josh feels the same way, and I know Jane does as well. So I think we need to further vet this. So I just wanna say that.
I think with that feedback, Andy.
Well, but, correct me if I'm wrong, but have we not in the past, when there are certain topics, whether, not certainly this scale, but whether we decide they merit proceeding on to the notice of neighbors?
Yeah, we did that with Crystal Lake and Swimming Norris, and we rejected that.
Before it went to a public hearing.
Right.
So,
But then you were saying within the process of what you did, you didn't allow discussion on those evenings, you had an internal meeting. You've now allowed discussion on what may be one side of the issue.
Fair point.
And I think you have to leave it out there. I'm not saying, again, that's just my thought process.
I think something this important, we can't just have a motion and kill it here. I think the public deserves to have a public hearing with the process. We've done that before. We said, who we people to decide whether something like this should not go to the public.
I think that's right. I think it is a little bit draconian to kill it right now based upon that feedback from Bob. But I do think it is important for Josh Josh to have some feedback from the commission. So I perhaps offer something a little softer in the form of guidance, along the lines of, the commission is, and I'll throw it out there for feedback, not inclined to approve any repurposing of any green space for the building of, a project like this. Number one, which would take those other 5 sites off the table. And number two, we would expect to see more than one option. So I think what a lot of people in the room seem to be concerned about, and I share that concern, is if you're moving down the path with only one option in mind, either you're going to come to the conclusion that it's going to work, which is probably what you're going to come to, or you're going to spend a lot of time spinning your wheels and reject it. So instead of it being, that binary option, it'd be better for you to come back with a few options, right? To say, okay, we looked at this one, we looked at this one, we looked at this one, right? That way we have something to compare them to.
Or just for point of clarification, are you suggesting, and I believe you are, us to come back with some of the non-park options to see what the compromises would be?
Well, I think consistent with some of the standards that have been put out there, we have to look at the non-park options before we touch parkland.
And Mike mentioned too is,
You said in the past that you were looking at other options, non-city land.
Yep.
Is that, you're still doing that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there's your answer.
But we haven't talked about it. I mean, the only thing that's been put out there is a feasibility study for this one piece of property.
We haven't got it yet.
so, okay, but wait a second, if it's not parks and recreation land, we have no jurisdiction. So why are we even in the mix, other
Well,
than only because it's our mouth?
Well, I mean, as I understand the standard, we have to understand before we do any taking of park lane, that all other reasonable options have been exhausted. And I'm not sure that standard has been met. You mentioned that there are several secondary options which might be giving a little, right? So, I for one would be uncomfortable with you just plowing ahead, and just doing a feasibility study for this one piece of property.
Well, it seems as though from looking at the fact, that Lincoln Elliott has been taken off the table because it's a school committee property. Well, parks and recreation property are the parks. So why wasn't this taken off the table? Because he'd have to get permission from the school committee. Well, that makes Lincoln Elliott unfeasible. And Lincoln Elliott being going to Aquinas, which I think Aquinas would be a much better site for the NewCAL. And when I was running from there, I was told it's not centrally located enough. Well, now, with Albemarle not being centrally located, I don't know why that's out of the mix too, but, I mean, if we would have to say that something's out of the mix and not feasible because we have to go before the school committee and ask them for it, why wouldn't any park in the city be out of the mix because you have to come to Park and Rec and ask us for it?
But that wasn't the only reason against.
Right, yeah, there were quite a few.
But that was one of the big reasons it said, because it's a school committee property.
Well, among other factors.
Yeah, among other factors,
Okay,
but,
yeah.
I mean, this is a Park and Rec property. That should, minus some of the points off of the scale of, what they were talking about, the feasibility.
It wasn't designed for city owned land in general, right? It was school.
Correct.
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to come up with how we present that tonight, but I hear you, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand the due diligence that we need to show. The challenge that I think we're presented with is how do we condense 18 months worth of work into a period of time that can be readily digested in a committee format. I'll find a way, we'll find a way, so.
I will withdraw the motion, but are we going to go to a public hearing or have a discussion about whether there should be a public hearing at our next meeting?
No, I think that's premature. I don't think we're ready to present that because we get to the level where it's gonna be presented that we're gonna take a real vote would be months from now, I would think, right?
But
Yes,
then-
realistically speaking, that would have to mean all the other issues were addressed and there's funding.
But then you're spending feasibility money only on Albemarle, and the project then takes sense of inevitability.
I think that's what that's what I was suggesting we can tell them not to do. Right?
Tony, if he does feasibility studies for other locations, he's gonna have to do.
But that's almost like implicit approval to go proceed and continue the process of a park being taken.
I think it's the opposite. I mean, that's my feedback.
Two recommendations, two parcels I heard Mike mention haven't been considered, and those are the ones that should be reviewed. And can that be done before next month's meeting?
Yes, but at the same time, I mean, we could evaluate those two sites, but we have a lot of work to do, a lot of work. And that is gonna take some time. Tonight was more just about getting it out there, hearing from the community, hearing your feedback, getting all the issues on the table and seeing what we can do to address those. A lot of that work is gonna be done internally by different staff members. Some of it will require some professional assistance, some of it will be able to rely on existing reports that have already been done, that we can present here. Quite frankly, I recognize that there would be questions about parking and traffic. Part of me wonders, should I have brought a 17 megabyte parking and traffic analysis report? On one hand, it could have been valuable. On the other hand, it would have been quite an extended period of time to go through it. Can I take that and condense it into something that's more digestible for the group? Certainly. So there's a lot of things that I can come back with, but we're a ways off from being able to present any kind of solution for all of the different challenges. So, and opportunities. The other thing that we really want to explore is how much can we pull in? How much efficiency can we create? How little impact can we have? Because I think there are opportunities there. I do.
I mean, your initial motion was to kill it, or potentially, put to a vote to potentially kill it, say no parkland period.
Which would then require analysis of other
Yes.
other
That's
feasible
one option.
alternatives.
Or we go Sam's route, which is that we have a more diplomatic statement, which is saying they're not killing Albemarle per se, but like killing the other 5 parks.
If I can make an undiplomatic statement quickly. I think what we are saying to you, in addition to what I indicated before, is that Parks and Rec land is not free land. And if the price may be, should in fact, you should consider it higher than the school committee land, that it seems that some of that would be perfectly reasonable to use. And it's not going to be any easier going through us than it would be through the school committee.
So do you want to keep your motion? Go ahead, Al.
I think what I'm really trying to say is I don't want to lead you on. There's not much in this world that would get me to vote to put this on parkland. And I think we need to look at other options. And right now, the feasibility study, just looking at this, seems to me like we're gonna just be throwing money away. And I hate to be blunt about it, but I don't, that's how I feel about open space and parkland. I'm sorry.
There's no reason to apologize for that, but I would ask this in a question, and this is a purely hypothetical. If we were able to come back with a proposed project that had no net loss of park space at that location, would that be acceptable? And by park space, I mean open space, hardscape, green space, however you want to define it.
Replace with basketball courts,
Yep.
with tennis courts.
Yep.
And give us a new pool. And give us a new pool.
And the parking.
Because if we don't get a new pool, I don't know how we're gonna get
Do
it.
you want to refer to your motion that it's not binding, that you're saying a statement, a formal statement to the committee or to the mayor that this is where we are, or?
I guess, yes,
A
the
statement.
the burden is huge to, at least for me, to.
Yeah, well, let the commission vote in May.
Right. To continue this discussion with Albemarle, that solve the parking problems, solve the brook skidding problems, solve the.
Right. So So I'm feeling
But
like,
that all happens anyway now, that's the process. We don't have to vote to have the process.
we could vote to send a message and say, that given the current
What we want.
proposal, we're not feeling too warm and fuzzy about it, but not be buying, not actually kill the project, but just send a message that in this current iteration, X, Y, and Z.
What's the current iteration? What's the problem? I mean, it's a pool, a gym,
Well,
or?
part of it too is the community support. I mean, this room is filled with people who live in the community who are adamantly opposed to it, you know, for, I think, a lot of legitimate reasons. That's always been an important part of, you know, kind of things that we've done in the parks.
This isn't the public hearing.
But, you know, I mean, you know, it's there, and we're trying to give Josh feedback, you know, which he's asked for.
He just asked a question about keeping it at the same size that's existing now. He's not losing any back.
That's what we were understanding, that we weren't losing
That's the
any
whole
green
idea,
space. It was on those buildings and the tennis court and the basketball
And
court.
replace, the basketball and
You know, the only thing that would make me vote for this, the thing that would make me vote for this is that it's a $9 million pool. You think we're gonna get new pools if we don't vote for this? CPC isn't gonna fund two pools.
Why not?
It's beyond its useful life. It needs to be replaced.
What? They went off on.
They will not fund it.
On window pool.
Leave that as it is.
But I guess what I'm saying is all we're really asking for is an opportunity to further study this. I want to get into some evaluations about what is the minimum impact we can have, net impact we can have on that site. I just want to test that theory out. Got a bunch of ideas rattling around in my head. I don't want to say them publicly, again, for some of the things that or some of the reasons we've already said, but I just want to test those theories out. I also don't want to get people's hopes up. I want to evaluate them. They may not work. They may work, but I want to test that out. And I'm not looking, again, we're not looking for the commission to say, yes, we support this. I'm just looking for an opportunity to test this out and see if we can see what we can address based on the concerns that have been expressed. And what I would look for the rest of the commission members to tell us is, you know, what are your other concerns? What are your issues? Put them on the table. It doesn't mean that you support or that you are against it, but put it all on the table and then let us go do some work.
I just think it's a fair request to study it and see where it brings us.
I guess I'd like to do the straw vote of sentiment, current sentiment, and if somehow Josh were able to pull a rabbit out of the hat and make a proposal that satisfies the community and deals with the very major issues that have been raised. We have to decide whether the fundamental question, whether a building that is devoted 40% to non-park and recreation uses is an appropriate percentage to take parkland for, regardless of whether it's using hardscape or not.
We should make a formal inquiry with all department on that, and has that already been done, or we need to make a formal?
I think it's our judgment about, because we're making an irrevocable decision for whether,
Right.
for the next 50 years.
Trying to kryptonite for a legal decision. But, normally, we would defer to the law department to even say it's suitable, and then we decide if it is, if we still may not like it, but.
I mean, whether it's appropriate for a building's not totally
Whether in
devoted to
violation
recreation
of
uses.
the amendment was the 97, right?
Well, it's possible our state representatives and senators could convince 2/3 of the legislature to vote for the project. That's a remote concern. It's our duty to decide whether we think that's appropriate.
Andy, do you want to do a straw poll just to gauge interest as to whether
As
the meeting
pre-
might be interested in this?
Could I see what Bob, what do you think about that commission?
I voiced my concern about going away from process tonight and having a public hearing.
That's going,
It's
that's
a
non-process, right?
Yeah, that's fine, it's a non-binding vote,
Non-binding.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that, and send that message to the executive office.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah, well, if it's a non-binding vote, it's a non-binding vote. what I would suggest instead is that we caution, whatever the entity is, you know, the committee, not to proceed with the feasibility study until other options that would include the two that I suggested, in particular school land, not to proceed with a single, you know, Parks and Rec based feasibility study.
Want to make an amendment to Andy's motion? Let's have a restatement of what the motion be.
If it's a friendly amendment, that's fine.
Okay.
You know.
Like, what parkland you talking about? I mean, school land.
Well, the Lincoln Elliott School, there were a number that they had listed here. And I think the real reason they didn't do it is that it was school land, and there were several properties involved, you know. And
Also water.
so I just don't have the feeling that they were, I think what they had in mind is that it's easier to get parkland than it is to get school land.
Can I speak to that one specifically?
And I want to disavow them of that.
Yes.
I certainly understand the point, but specifically on Lincoln Elliott, so the intent is that Lincoln Elliott will operate as a swing school, which will allow us to address the other school projects that are in and around Newton. That is not, you know, the fact that it is school property is certainly a step that we would need to take, but more importantly, if we didn't have Lincoln Elliott, we would not have swing space to renovate or rebuild our other schools. Swing space defined as a location where a particular school, like a Countryside or Franklin, could move into while we are renovating or replacing their school.
And I'll add to that list, I mean, there, as in one of the letters that was written to us, one of the many letters that was written to us, they pointed out that, you know, some churches have been closing, you know, there's that land and some private schools maybe. And I'll also point out, you know, the planning department, of course, doesn't always look ahead for various reasons. There was the water fiasco years ago. And of course, Austin Street was just awfully close to the senior center, you know. What would you think? I mean, that land could have been used for, you know, a site that's not far away, could make a nice pathway between the two and solve the problem.
Andy, do you want to do just rephrase your motion and take a straw vote?
I guess very simply, as presently proposed to us on an informational basis, the commission strongly is disinclined to approve any parkland usage for NewCAL, and we suggest that the feasibility study look at non-parkland possibilities.
Okay. Non-binding vote to message to the executive and so forth, the committee. Second on that, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. All right, all in favor of that motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, vote against. 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 3, 5, 5, 4, okay. So relatively, well, actually, no, that's not, we should only have 8. It's 4, so one of us,
Close enough for government.
it's 4-4. Okay. It's a non-binding, it's a message to the executive, so it could have been 7-1, it could have been whatever, so. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, my watch says milk and cookies are served at 10:15.
I'm well aware of that.
I appreciate the fact that so many people have sat here and listened politely, and I hope they will all go home feeling informed but not decided, because there's obviously much more that we need to digest. I also hope that Robin will make sure that the minutes reflect the attendance and joyful, thank goodness, participation of Jane and Josh tonight, because we could not have done it without them.
Okay, so that's gonna wrap up that agenda item, we're gonna move on to other business together. You're welcome to stay for that too.